I was reading a diary last night, yesterday, to a sister of mine who's in a nursing home. The diary was written in 1978. It was written by a woman that was travelling from the UK to Australia, and they were going through places like Turkey and into Iraq, so forth. And she was talking about the places that the Romans had put up and somebody else had put up 3,000 years before, etc., etc., etc. I think it's just human beings. We get up in the morning and go to the toilet and have breakfast. I think we'll go on scrapping, just like the kids do. I lived in South Gippsland. My father was a member of a family, the Couper family, who settled there way back in about the 1880s. They were dairy farmers. Two of his brothers went to the First World War, and that was a very significant thing. He was too young. When the outbreak of the Second World War came, although he had 6 children, one was only a couple of years old, he joined the army, and I suppose that sort of brought me into the picture. But then, just prior to when the Japanese came into the war, they were establishing the Air Training Corps. I suppose I read something about it, and I thought, that's for me, that's for me. And I rushed off down to the drill hall in Camberwell and joined the Air Training Corps. And then when I became 18, I must have passed all the medicals, and I was taken into the Air Force. Well, after I'd been at Summers, I was posted over to Tasmania for a flying training to become a pilot, but not everybody became a pilot. And then I was posted to Cootamundra, where it was an air navigation school. That was to become what they then called an air observer, and I went through that, and in the process we learned to be so-called bomb aimers. We shared the navigational duties really, and later on, after I'd finished what they termed a tour was a allotted number of flights or bombing missions that you needed to do. After I'd finished that, I then went back to navigating. It's terrible. Our first flight, we briefed. We had a navigator anyway, forget that. We took off, and he would have given the pilot a bearing to fly on, and the pilot, of course, had to fly that. And after about 3 or 4 minutes, he said, "I'm sorry," but he said, "I've given you the wrong course to fly." We were late, and whilst we might have been only 10 minutes late, that's a lot in miles. And when we got over Holland, we were on our own, and we ran into anti-aircraft fire. I can still smell it, and that was terrible. Sitting there, I could see the anti-aircraft, when the shells burst, there was sort of a smoke, and I was at the front, and you could see all the smoke like that all over the place. And you've got to remember, we were flying at 15, 20, 21, 22,000 feet. The cold was terrible. The cousin of my mother's sent me some pyjamas, always wore them. It was always said on the squadron that if you survived the first three, you had a fair chance. Well, we very nearly didn't. Never forgotten it. Terrible.